Ache here with the Calaveras Chamber of Commerce. And for the state of county today, we want to introduce you to Kristin Stranger. And Kristin, such a pleasure having you here. You are not just the director of a department, you're the director of an agency, Health and Human Services for Calaveras County. And so I was hoping that you could explain, for those people who aren't following, you're kind of on a platform right now, so a lot of people know who you are and what Health and Human Services is. But can you share a little bit about your role and what your entire agency covers?
Sure, thank you. So thanks for having me, first of all. So the Health and Human Services Agency, we're a pretty big group, and we provide a number of programs and services that are meant to improve the overall well-being of the community. We protect the public health. We serve vulnerable community members and look out for their safety. We do things like enhance self-sufficiency for community members who are seeking benefits, and other things such as one of our main things has been lately, obviously, the being point on the COVID-19 pandemic response. So those are some of our overarching goals and overarching services that we provide. And there's about 200 of us that are our HHSA team members. We do things like respond to child welfare allegations of abuse. We provide services like if anybody's enrolling on Medi-Cal, for example, you're usually working with an HHSA team member, or even if your child is receiving nutrition education in the classroom, they're likely engaging with one of our health educators as part of public health. So that's a little bit of a flavor of the types of services we provide. Actually, the overwhelming majority are state and federally funded programs that we administer and have responsibility for administering locally. So what that means is that we don't have a ton of discretion in terms of how we administer those. We are subject to oversight from many state agencies. We have a plethora of overarching bosses. And then in addition, we make sure that we are administering those policies and those services in accordance with board direction. Our Board of Supervisors is our local entity that provides oversight to Health and Human Services. So, you know, we balance a lot of various oversight agencies in an attempt to make sure that we are helping our community members and providing services that they are seeking. And then, so my role in that really is just to, one, ensure that we are operating in accordance with those standards and in accordance with that direction, and then to provide support. We have a number of team members who do all sorts of various professions. We have social workers, we have mental health clinicians, and we have office assistants, eligibility workers, all sorts of different types of professionals. And it's my job to support them and give them what they need so that they can provide the services to our community.
Since the beginning of COVID-19, really yourself along with Dr. Kaleda have taken center stage. And so I'd like to hear, what are some of the challenges that you guys have encountered with being a part of this whole COVID-19 pandemic?
You know, one of the things we talk about, particularly in the public health department, which again it has been lead on the response, although it's been the whole agency who's really been involved in doing what we can to protect the health and safety of our community. But the response itself has been a truly divisive energy that's occurred not only here in Calaveras, but state and nationwide. I mean, you can clearly see that. And the divisiveness of the response efforts have been, that's probably been one of the largest challenges, because, you know, for every amount of people who are very concerned about government overreach, there's an equal amount of constituents who are concerned that not enough is being done. And we get that. It's something that we are not naive to, and we are very empathetic with our community. And, you know, our community is scared, they're tired, they're frustrated, and we are too. So it's not that we, you know, just being parts of the community too, and having that be such a challenge has definitely been one of the biggest challenges thus far. You know, we are utilizing scientific-based pandemic response practices, which we've had been utilizing and throughout the years and preparing for, but our responses thus far have always been to things that have been on much smaller scales. Very, very smaller, much smaller scales. And in this particular response, it's really seeping into every aspect of everyday life and causing such an impact. And so I would say that has probably been one of the larger things one of the larger challenges. And, you know, it's not even just public health Other parts of our agency are seeing increased community request for need, increased community services. We're seeing an increase in community members seeking benefits for job loss or wage reduction types of. So we're seeing individuals and families in need more of CalFresh and CalWorks types of benefits. We are seeing increase in mental health needs and people. Constituents and community members seeking out crisis response as well as just mental health supports. And so we're doing our very best to be responsive to those to be responsive to those needs in our community, but while also balancing again the empathy for what our community is experiencing. I think that what my team would want our community to know is that we are extremely dedicated and passionate about serving our community. I personally know that a number of our local county team members are very experienced, very knowledgeable and credentialed in the work that they do. And so, we're not going anywhere. We are fully committed to providing support to our community, and we'll get through this, and we will learn a lot of lessons from it. And we've actually, even in our response, had to pivot in our service delivery, right? Like much of the work that we do is very face-to-face type of contact, and in a pandemic, you can't really do that. So I want to recognize the efforts of our team members who have been really good about shifting in doing what they can to support the clients and community as a whole.
Well, thank you. One of the things that obviously representing a lot of businesses on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce that we have concerns about and have had struggles with is the amount of pressures that have been put on small businesses especially, and it's been unprecedented in the matter of closures and the way that's happened and the requirements really for what they need to have as far as PPE or whatever it may be. And I was hoping you could share a little bit about your take on the county's response to our business community.
Yeah, so I think the first thing I want to do is recognize the extraordinary efforts of our local businesses. We have seen the overwhelming majority of them do everything they possibly can and be engaged in trying to learn what those ever-changing requirements are, right? To protect not only the health of our local residents, but also protect the health of visitors and whomever else they might be serving in their place of business. So I think first and foremost, I think that the efforts that they have gone through, they're truly commendable, and I think that they deserve a lot of admiration for that. I think that, again, kind of going back to what I said earlier about public health and health and human services as a whole, we recognize the huge impact that the pandemic response is having on our whole community and businesses in addition. So what we are trying to do is when it makes sense, either take part in or even lead efforts that in partnerships that we can engage in to provide additional support. So, one that comes to mind particularly is working with the Chamber actually to make available personal protective equipment at no charge to local businesses, do other things such as seeking out external resources or grants to provide additional support, engaging in webinars and other types of external facing outreach information to help inform our community members about how to access the information, because I think the website's gotten a lot more easy to navigate, but particularly in the early stages of the pandemic, it was really difficult to understand today what is my requirement versus tomorrow. And so we are truly committed to making sure we're part of all of those partnerships and outreach efforts to communicate that information. And at the public health department, we're actually the line that receives all the questions and all the calls and those types of things. And so my team has prioritized making sure that the responses to those questions are of top priority, because those are our constituents who are looking to try to operate in accordance with the current requirements and whatever requirements are of that time. And so again, going back to the dedication to the community, that's a huge part of what we try to make sure we're prioritizing. Doesn't mean the responses that we give oftentimes don't satisfy constituents, but our main priority is providing accurate and timely information. And then lastly, I kind of touched on this a second ago, but I think about particularly in a small community, partnerships and collaboration are the heartbeat of what we do. We're all resource challenged, and we have limited times and such like that. So, we have limited resources, and so being able to engage in partnerships with a really committed professionals and really committed, whether they be government or non-government entities, is been something that we have seen the most success with thus far. So we continue to make that a priority and continue to make that something that we can do to continue to further support businesses while they are having to adjust in such a difficult time.
In the conversations that I've had over the past month for State of the County, it's been remarkable to hear over and over the stories of how truly linking arms has been the way that we recover from this, the way that we move on. And I think it bears highlighting too what you emphasize, that none of us were prepared for this. None of us were ready for it. And
not
so,
to this level.
No, definitely not. And so as things are happening to us, you at Health and Human Services, Public Health Department with COVID-19 have been really on the ground, boots on ground, rolling up your sleeves, trying to do the work. So can you share a little bit about what you're hopeful for over the next 6 to 9 months here at Calaveras County?
This community is incredibly resilient. You were just speaking about it a second ago about linking arms and taking care of each other. So I'm really hopeful that we will debrief and reflect on some of the lessons learned in the future. I think that our county has done a phenomenal job of mitigating the spread. I mean, there's a reason that we're currently in the red tier, which is, the substantial risk. So it's not the widespread. That's because of everybody in our community really engaging and doing what they can to protect their overarching health of their families as well as the health of the community. And so I'm really looking forward in the more immediate to continuing to move further down the tiers, right? To move from substantial to a less restrictive tier by everybody continuing to engage in all of the practices that we've outlined probably a million times that people are probably tired of hearing us say, but are so extremely important. The face coverings, the hand washing, the distance, and the staying home when ill, and all of those measures. So in the immediate, I'm looking forward to that. In the more longer term, I'm looking forward to, again, identifying lessons learned and partnerships that maybe we hadn't originally maybe worked with an entity so tightly, Health and Human Services, but also other partnerships, continuing to utilize those relationships to provide more for our community as we move forward. On a day-to-day perspective, I'm really excited to kind of revisit. We have so many great things at Health and Human Services going on. We've been, even throughout the pandemic, we've been successful in obtaining a large-scale grant to add mental health services in our elementary schools, and other things like working with local child care providers to improve quality and increase quantity, which as we all know is a huge need in our community. And this is all being done throughout the pandemic. And there's a lot of good work that's still continuing to go on. But with the response being HHSA's top priority, our team members are obviously utilizing a lot of their energy in that response. So I'm looking forward to getting back to all that great work and refocusing on some of the amazing things that we're doing in the community with our partners and such. So, yeah.
Kristin, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great hearing from you and from the perspective in such a difficult time. So thank you for your leadership.
Oh, thank you, Morgan. Likewise.